Yeah. Well, it's great to meet you, and I want to begin our conversation before we get into your life as an artist and all of these things that are a part of your world by asking you, how did you get through the last 3.5 years? How did you survive COVID, and how did it change you?
COVID is interesting, because there are some good things that came out of COVID. But obviously there are lots of bad things. I work at home anyway, so it wasn't a huge difference for me in that way. The thing that was obviously different for me was just the social aspect. I mean, I'm usually a very social person. I like to visit people. My hobby is going to concerts. So not having that mental break,
Yeah.
going to a live show
Yeah.
um for, a year and a half, almost 2 years, that was a little tough. That was definitely hard. But I mean, overall, I think some of the good that came out of it is that, I mean, for me in particular with a disability, like, it's great when I can work online.
Yeah.
It's great when I can, talk to you or do another interview or speak to a group of people or whatever through the internet.
Yeah.
And uh, and more people are doing that now. And
Yeah.
they were pushed to do that because of COVID. So
Yeah.
that part is kind of nice. But yeah, the social part was really difficult. I mean, and I got COVID, but my mom got, everybody around me got it. Like,
Yeah.
we all were okay. We were all
Yeah.
sick, but we were all okay. And you know, I think, I mean, this is not for everyone, but I think in general, if you take care of your body and you are basically a healthy person, then yeah, you're going to get sick, but it's not going to be, the end all be all. But of course, there are cases where that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was a hard one. It was a very scary time for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you're quite busy. You're a public speaker, you're a designer, you're an artist. So I'm going to ask you this. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids asks you, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I usually tell them that I'm an artist and a graphic designer
Okay.
and that I like to talk to people. So yeah, I mean, that is generally speaking, when I speak to people, I speak about my art and my design. So it all kind of goes back to that. But yeah, public speaking is something I started doing for real. I mean, quote, air quotes there,
Yeah.
about maybe 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And I joined the Toastmasters group and started actually working on my public speaking
Yeah.
and actually trying to find public speaking opportunities. And it's interesting because as I mentioned, I'm a very social person and I really like meeting people. And I found that, I mean, even today, like, I probably would have never met you, right?
Yeah.
Through any other way.
Sure.
And that's what I've found, that it has helped me with the most. But also I've gotten some art opportunities from it and that kind of thing too. So it's
Yeah.
been really, yeah.
So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
What did I want to be? So I was obsessed with the movie Free Willy when I
Okay.
was that age, and I wanted to be a killer whale trainer, which there
Cool.
are lots and lots of problems with that. Um, but yeah, I really wanted to do that, and and then I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe not killer whale trainer, but I want to be a marine biologist. And
Yeah.
then I don't know, at some point I moved out of that and decided I wanted to do something with art. So yeah.
So you kind of piqued my interest when you talked about live music. What was the first live show you ever saw that blew you away?
Well, I can tell you the first live show I ever saw. The first live show I ever saw was Alabama with my
Okay.
dad
Yeah.
in a casino when I was 10,
Okay.
because my mom had this arbitrary rule that I still don't agree with, that I wasn't allowed to go to a live concert till I was 10, which was stupid. because Garth Brooks was playing before that, and she wouldn't let me go. But anyway, um, but anyway, so yes, my first concert was Alabama, and I loved it. I mean, I still remember it, and that was 25 years ago,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first, I mean, Garth Brooks is amazing.
Yeah.
That is one that just completely blew, like, his stage presence is, there's nobody like him.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody like him. The other one I saw relatively recently, like within the last 3 years or so, is Queen came with Adam Lambert to
Oh,
New
yeah.
Orleans. And, Adam Lambert's unbelievable, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the guy can sing anything. But what was amazing about that show was the production, like the staging and the effects and how they incorporated Freddie Mercury, and
Yeah.
it was really impressive.
Wow.
I was
That's
very
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they
So,
sounded great,
yeah.
but the production was amazing.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So take me back to where you were born and raised and how art and design became your world.
So I was actually born in Philadelphia,
Okay.
which I don't tell a whole lot of people, but I was actually born in Philadelphia, but we moved to New Orleans when I was about 8 months old.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, I don't remember anything
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
living up there. But my mom's family is from Cajun country, about 2 hours from here, and so my parents wanted to move somewhere closer to them,
Yeah.
but not too close.
Yeah.
and and so we moved down here. I grew up with both of my parents were veterinarians. My dad passed away about 12 years ago. My mom is still practicing today. And so I grew up around animals.
Yeah.
We always had animals. My mom jokes because when I was born, I was actually allergic to cats. And
Oh,
each of my parents, when they got married, had two cats.
yeah.
And so, my grandfather, who's a doctor, wanted my mom to get rid of the cats when I was born. And my mom said, no, they were here first.
Yeah.
She's just going to have to figure it out, which I did. I grew out of my allergy and I'm no longer allergic to cats. Um, so anyway, so I grew up with two parents who were veterinarians. And because I have a bone disability, that basically means that my bones don't grow right, they break all the time. I was not able to do a lot of the things my friends could do growing
Yeah.
up. So I couldn't, go play soccer or, dodgeball or anything like that. And so my mom was constantly trying to find things that I could do because I was really smart and I was really bored and I was driving her completely insane. And so she, gave me all kinds of things to read and to learn. And, as far as like learning things, I was way ahead of most of my friends. But one day she gave me a watercolor set when I was like 5 or so. And it was, one of those cheap, cakey watercolor sets that you would normally give a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And I loved it and I blew through it. And it turned out that I actually was okay at it,
Yeah.
even as a 5-year-old. And so from there, my parents made sure that I got art in different areas. So I got art from school, I got art from summer camps, private lessons, all kinds of. I guess it really caught on when I was about 10. I sold my first painting.
Wow.
And then I'd have to go to work with my parents on the weekends. And so I'd sit in the waiting area and paint or draw their clientele.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, their clientele was asking me to paint or draw their animals for money.
Wow.
And so, as a 12-year-old and you're making $20 a pop on a drawing, that's something your friends aren't doing. So that's kind of when it stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
was kind
cool.
of it. Yeah.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
Um, that's an interesting question. I I have a lot of respect for my mother because I mean, I was not an easy child. I broke all the time. I cried all the time. Like it was always difficult to handle me, right?
Yeah,
And so I'm sure her life was very, very difficult for a while.
yeah,
Um, and still is sometimes. Um, and the one thing is she never let me feel sorry for myself, and that is really important.
yeah,
That I'm not entitled to anything because I have a physical challenge,
yeah,
which is good. It makes me want to work,
yeah,
which I think is a general problem in this country right now, that a lot of people just don't want to work. And there's really no good reason for that. But
yeah.
that's another conversation for
Right.
another day.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, so my mother, her mother was a very strong woman. My grandmother, um, there are some celebrities, of course, I look up to. Like, I have a lot of respect for Reba McEntire. I think she's an incredible woman who, came from almost nothing and look at who she is,
Yeah,
today. Um, I have a kind of a special connection with Rod Stewart and kind of the same thing. Like,
yeah.
he came from almost nothing and
Mhm.
look at where he is today, you know? So, yeah,
So you
yeah.
may have answered it, but if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would you love to meet and talk to?
There are a lot of people I would love to meet. I actually have met both Reba and Rod Stewart, uh,
Okay.
but I would love to have a longer conversation with Reba. Um, it was a quick meeting, but it was one of the best moments ever. Um, but it was quick. Um, it's kind of a long story, and I don't know that we have time for it during this podcast, but I actually have met Rod Stewart several times and got to work for him
Oh,
through
cool.
a weird twist of fate um a few years ago. And so I actually have gotten to talk with him at length and, you know, kind of have formed a little bit of a bond with him, which is really cool.
Yeah,
I would love to meet Garth Brooks. I think he's incredible.
yeah,
Um, Dolly Parton, I'd love to meet her. I
yeah,
wish I had gotten to meet Betty White. Just
yeah,
'cause, I mean, she was such an incredible woman, you
yeah.
know. I'd love to meet Meryl Streep. I think she's also a very strong, incredible woman. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a few out there
Yeah,
I'd
for
love to
sure.
meet.
So in the world of art, what's been the best art exhibit you've ever seen? Best art museum?
Hmm, best art museum. Let's see. I really enjoyed the Guggenheim
Yeah,
when we went to New York.
yeah.
That was really interesting. I, it's kind of funny. This is not the best, but it just made me think of this. When we went to New York and we went to MoMA, um, there was an exhibit on Katrina there. And I was just like, really? We just left New Orleans and
Yeah,
there's an exhibit on Katrina in New York. Oh my God. Anyway,
yeah,
it was not the most accurate either, which
yeah,
again, another story for another day.
yeah.
Um, there was a really cool, this was several years back, but there was a really cool exhibit of George Rodrigues' Blue Dog work in the New Orleans Museum of Art
Yeah.
not long ago. And it actually wasn't just his Blue Dog work, it was the work he did prior to the Blue Dog and some of the work he did after and kind of in between. And that was a really interesting exhibit because it talked a lot about him and his process, and I always find that really interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing I actually saw very recently was the immersive Van Gogh
Oh yeah.
exhibit.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
what they did with that exhibit. That was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your motivation every day to wake up, to be who you are, to create? What is that motivation for you?
It depends on what day you ask. Sometimes it's because I live with 5 dogs and
Mm,
there is no sleeping in my house
yeah.
past a certain time. Um, sometimes it is, I mean, I'm not sleeping anyway, so I might as well get up and do something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just because I want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just because I want to paint. And the thing is that now I do this as a job. So it's not as often that I'm like, oh, I want to get up and be creative because I do it as a job.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and that's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah.
It does give me a way to share something with society and it gives me a way to make a living, but it's not really a hobby anymore.
Right.
I would say my hobby is going to see live music.
Yeah.
My job is art.
Yeah.
You but yeah, I mean, I like to make people happy.
Yeah.
And so if this does that, then I'm good.
Yeah. So what's been the best fan letter, best client response you've ever gotten?
Oh man. I've gotten some good responses. I'm trying to think. It's usually the ones when I do pet portraits. It's usually the ones that say, "Oh my God, that looks just like my pet," and you've captured part of their soul.
Yeah.
Because that's always my goal is to
Yeah.
try and definitely you can hear my dog now. You can. It's not just that I want it to look like your pet. I want it to be a portrayal of your pet emotionally and all of that combined,
Yeah.
spiritually, whatever, however you want to say that. Um, so yeah, it's always nice to hear that. Um, yeah, I think that would
Yeah.
be, yeah.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version, say senior in high school version of you. You could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life so far. What advice would you impart on that young version?
Probably just keep going
Yeah.
because I mean, it's not fun to just stop, and you're not going to gain any opportunities by just stopping. I mean, look, like I just did a talk on this actually yesterday. Um, the whole thing about when I met Rod Stewart was just because I went to his show. It has nothing to do with like I reached out to him. I just said, "Oh, I want to go see him at Jazz Fest," and I went, and we ended up backstage, and this whole thing happened. But um, it you never know. Like I didn't wake up that morning saying, "I'm going to meet Rod Stewart today." Like you never know.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that I've gotten since then from that like one day, that one meeting, it's unbelievable. You
Yeah.
know, I did a talk to a Rotary Club last year, and from that talk, there was a woman in the audience who ran a gallery, an art gallery, and she has now offered me a solo art exhibit.
Wow.
I
Cool.
mean, again, like you never know what's
Yep.
gonna, what connection you're gonna make and what's gonna stick. My dad used to say, keep throwing pasta up against the wall and eventually something's gonna stick.
That's right.
You know? So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah. You never know. So of all of the things that you've done in your life so far, what are you the proudest of?
I don't know how so. I am the proudest of. Well, I just had a show in a museum, which is like it's kind of a big stepping stone for an artist.
Hmm.
To have your own exhibit, and it's a small museum, but still, it's a museum nonetheless.
Sure.
Um, to have your own exhibit in a museum is kind of a big deal because I mean, it's a big deal to have a show in a gallery, but galleries are, I mean, there's a certain monetary thing with galleries. Like, they're wanting to make money and they're seeing your art and they're saying, oh, that make us some money. But with a museum, it's more about, we think this artist's work is really good.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure it gets shared with all of the people that come here.
Yeah.
And so, obviously it's not as financially fruitful to have your show in a museum, but it's more of an honor kind of thing. It's more of a status kind of thing. So that was very cool. So I had like a whole huge gallery full of my latest series. So that was really exciting. And I think just my art in general and the fact that I have managed to actually pull off creating a successful business is I mean, any business owner will tell you that's not easy.
Yeah.
That comes with its own set of challenges for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of the clients and everybody that has your artwork, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh man, you have some really good questions. You're making me think today.
Okay.
What's my perception of me? I think I try to be a positive person who's creative. And I try to make good decisions. And I'm a very loyal friend until you screw me over.
Yeah.
Sometimes multiple times. It takes a lot to really push me over the edge, but once you do, that's kind of the end.
Yeah.
I try to, people tell me I'm funny, and I try to be funny, but that comes from trying to be positive too. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, I mean, and I'm an artist.
Yeah.
So both like personally and professionally.
Right on. So, Katherine, if anyone wants to see your artwork, buy it, find out about shows, anything about your world, where do they go?
Okay, my website is KAKArtNola, like NOLA.com.
Okay.
And from there, you can go onto my Etsy store. So I have lots of things for sale on Etsy. I have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, kind of TikTok, but I'm not very active on it. I try, but I don't have enough time in the day, really.
Yeah.
And if you sign up for my mailing list on my website, you'll be the first to know everything. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Katherine, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful 2024.
Thanks. You too.
You bet. And before you go, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Klimitas, like arthritis.
Okay. I just want to, right on. I just want to make sure.
It's a hard one. It's Lithuanian. Nobody can say it or spell it.
That's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So, cool.
It's all good.
Yeah. Katherine, thank you so much.
Else for me, or we good?
We're good to go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
See you.